He is an openly queer black author, and
sorry,
what poor timing!
I know, my phone started going off, and I'm like, oh, I'm on mic. I was like, oh, that's not what I wanted to come out at that moment.
Oh goodness, when I say a queer black author.
I was just like,
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pointless Discourse with myself, Hoppocalypse, and Itisdpayne. And hello. Special guest who has been here. How many times has it been now?
Oh, I want to say this is either my third or fourth time.
Yeah. I know we
really? It feels like it's been a lot more.
There's the Samurai.
Oh,
There's the A24 Talk to Me.
One.
Yep. Oh, yeah, this is actually the fourth time. Yeah, and then there was the Studio Ghibli movie.
One.
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this is the fourth? That doesn't seem right.
Is J2 tied with most appearances then?
I think so. Because I know System Shock is up there.
And so is Night.
Yeah. I don't know. One of those. Yeah, you guys might be tied. I don't know. System Shock might be.
I don't think we had System Shock for A24, so that's.
It's a very easy thing to find out. Just as talking about, like, I fixed the glare at my glasses, I'm going to break it. Let's see.
Oh, we did have System Shock. We had for Ex Machina.
Yeah, Ex Machina.
Oh.
He's not even on this episode.
But I was just saying for, like, the most guest appearances we've had.
We should, since we have, like, spreadsheets for everything else, I'm surprised we don't have something for that.
It's because as they get old enough, I start to delete them. So if they were a guest long enough ago, we might not have it actually in a spreadsheet anymore.
Yeah. Because System Shock, the joke about him was he was the guest that was always for our guest test episode. So he was the first guest. He was also on the first double guest episode, which actually was Night's first episode.
And then was he the first one when we had movies?
I think so.
I've been watching movies
I don't
a while
know.
now.
We can ask him.
Sounds like he's a pretty
he
important person.
He's here. No. No, I do like System Shock. It's like for JT, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has like such a wealth of like knowledge that you can just literally sit back and then there's times I forget I'm on the podcast. Like, it's all good stuff, and then I realize, like, oh yeah, I'm recording and I'm on camera.
Yeah, because his background, he has done like film and stuff like that in Canada. So when we've had him for movies, sometimes you'd be like, well, you see it, and we're just like, Thank you. So it's always nice to have a bunch of perspectives. Eventually, we'll watch something, J2, where we'll have voiceover actors, and then we'll be able to get you to be that guy for us.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in case this is people's like first interaction with you on here, why don't you tell the weirdos on the other side of the screen who you be?
Yep. So hi, I'm J2Ruto, J2Ruto. You can find me anywhere on the internet at J2Ruto. I'm a Twitch streamer, YouTuber part-time, whenever I do that. Voice actor, gaming and content creator, comedian, improver, which I just found out I got cast in a new show this past week. Also a TTRPG performer, as you can see over my left hand or right hand side, depending on what side of the screen this stuff is on. But overall, just putting my voice out there, creating things for the world to make it a little bit more brighter and hopefully provide a few people out there with a little bit more joy in their day.
Nice. Speaking about TTRPG stuff, I think the last episode we're on was like the week before, 2 weeks before PAX Unplugged. And it was the funniest thing because me and you were walking around and you were, well, I'm going to butcher how do you pronounce the emblem on your hat?
Akatsuki.
The Naruto. Akatsuki. Yeah, that you had that in a hoodie, and then this guy like came out of nowhere, and like the dude knew his stuff and like sold J2 in the spot for this game. Yeah, he's gonna pull it up right there.
There it
And
is.
yeah, Shadow Scar, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm laughing, but it was just the guy. Like, he was very knowledgeable. He knew exactly who to talk to, but he also had like the cadence, if that's the right word,
Yep.
of like the almost like your stereotypical nerd. So I'm just sitting there, just like kind of giggling because it's just like, I have the perfect product for you. Listen here. and I sat there also listening for the next like 5 to 7 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not even interested in this, but this guy's passionate.
That's so funny. Have you guys watched any Smosh content recently?
I seen clips on the social medias, but
Yeah.
I haven't watched.
Yeah,
Here
so
and there.
that's kind of so that's kind of turned into Strider and I's like comfort stuff. Like when it's late at night and we don't want to like think, it's just like, you know, they're a bunch of improv actors at this point, just like hanging out. They do a lot of board games and TTRPGs on like their Smosh Games channel, but they have one character called The Chosen. And when
Oh,
you
yes.
yes,
I am the chosen.
so like when you said like his cadence fit that, I immediately imagined that character, but in front of the two of you trying to sell you a game. But I also joked with Strider because he put on a video about some video game that was like tips and tricks about this particular video game. And I was just laying there and I said, you know how The Chosen's a caricature? And he was like, yeah, and then you hear real people sound like this and you go, maybe it's not a caricature. I was like, okay. I didn't want to be the guy, but okay.
I don't know if it's a comfort thing, but we were talking before we hit record about ruining algorithms, and my YouTube thing that's connected to my whatever it is, the stuff I upload, that YouTube channel, the algorithm for that is now not ruined, but it is just filled with Chinese media because my girlfriend showed me this video. This show called Great Escape. If you guys want to watch it, you have to type in or say Mango TV Great Escape, and all it is they get these celebrities from China to go into these very elaborate and like giant escape rooms, and it is great because half of them are idiots, and then like the majority of them feel like personality hires, and then there's this one, it's like they have to be giving him like hints or ideas because he's just the only one that is keeping this show moving forward. But they're all like really themed in a certain way. So the one I finished was they all were going to apply for this job at this company. But like on their way there, this like person that they knew said like, I'm here to go find my brother. He got in here and I haven't seen him in like 6 weeks or like, and all this stuff. And so like there's this whole mystery. And then as it goes forward, like you learn like one of the people in this group of like the actors are going through the escape room is a spy that's working for the company to make everyone fail and like be stuck in the company. But then there's a detective who is trying to find out who the spy is and find out everything and get everyone out. And so like they don't do that every time, but it's just like they're doing this whole escape room and everything, and it's all in the theme. It's just so much fun to watch.
That sounds like a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, they are long episodes. Like I put them on when I'm working out, and I'm just like, the one I'm watching now is like the whole theme is like they're at a haunted theater, and like the puzzles are really neat. So like it's all like ballet. Like I'll just say the one puzzle that it was, like just to give an idea. So they're sitting there, and they like maneuver something in this room, and what looks like a mirror is actually like a two-way mirror, and on the other side, like when the lights come up, it shows like this ballerina. And like she does this dance, and then as like they're watching dance, okay, and then like, after a while they're like, wait, she's pausing it a little bit, and they find out like when she pauses, it is doing one half of a letter sign, and so they got to
Oh.
so she's on the other side of the mirror, so they got to like find out what the mirror sign is to find out what letters she's forming to put in the code to get through the next door.
I would
like
love to do something like that.
Oh yeah, I told my girlfriend, I'm like, if I was able to make like if content creation was my job, doing that and a couple other like game show ideas I would love to do that. Like I'm like, this is something I would love to do, like
Yep.
set it up and be part of.
That sounds so much fun, though. One of my favorite things, a couple of weeks ago, I did an escape room, and it was for one of my friends' birthday party, and I just love the kind of sort of workings of trying to solve puzzles and figure things out. And even though I haven't worked on puzzles in quite some time, I felt like I was pretty natural with slipping back in with, okay, this is how my brain needs to think. It needs to think outside the box instead of linear. And, instead of 2 plus 2 equal 4, 2 plus 2 may actually equal something else, which actually may lead to another clue to be able to solve this big mystery and get us out of this escape room. But overall, things like that where I have to solve puzzles in order to advance are one of my favorite things to do, especially whenever it requires me to think outside the box.
Yeah, like I like thinking of puzzles in that, but as soon as I got to solve a puzzle in like a D&D game, I'm like, just
Oh, yeah.
no. I don't. Can I roll something or move on? Like, we're gonna solve this riddle. I'd rather not. I don't even like solving riddles in real life. Give me something like a puzzle box I can go like tinker around with. I'll do that. But
I'm the same way. D&D, for some odd reason, that's where the threshold for me lies at.
I don't know. Sometimes it's a mixed bag because, so I've been playing actually recently a puzzle. I think it recently came out. I guess it's less a puzzle, but it's like you have to build a family tree, and all you basically have is like 90s internet, like late 90s internet. So that's been really fun. So that kind of feels like those weird D&D things where they're like, did you figure out who so and so knows because so and so and so and so and so and so? And I've played D&D sessions like that. I was like, we have to find the big evil guy, but everybody says they're the evil guy, so which one's the real evil guy? And then the other thing is Strider really likes point and click, so I'll watch him play those. And sometimes I feel like those are like D&D puzzles because like if you don't click the right thing in the right order, the secret DM is like, actually you just broke it, so try again. And I'm just sitting there like, I have no clue how to solve this puzzle. It's so like out there, but when it works it's like cool.
yeah,
But again, depends.
There's like what's that real famous point and click? I think it's King's Quest. I think it's King's Quest 3, and there's literally like back when game developers didn't care if you would just soft lock yourself in a game, and I remember seeing a video on it where it's like you had to, when you first got into this area, the movie that made it sound like is when you first come to this area. I don't know if it's like every time you come in here, but it's like a big like shot like drawn back where you can see like this whole farmhouse and everything, and there's like a couple of things moving, but the puzzle is for you to progress is there's a rat that comes out of the building, runs across a thing, and then runs down and like into this other hole, and you have to click the rat before it comes like before it goes back. And part of me thinks, if I'm remembering correctly, like if you don't click the rat in that one, like when you first enter there, you're just locked out of finishing the game.
That sucks.
Yeah, but I could be wrong because it was years ago and everything on the internet is true.
I mean, why wouldn't that be?
Yeah, why would they lie to you?
I don't know. I just figured anybody that has a mic doesn't lie.
Segue. Any case, if you haven't caught it from the title, and if you haven't caught it from our previous episode, in our big director watching thing for 2025, this month is Spike Lee. So last week we watched and discussed Do the Right Thing. This week is Malcolm X, and yes, J2 is a guest. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with this. So you guys ready to roll dice?
Yeah.
While we're grabbing our dice, I guess a good question is, well, two questions. Are we doing highest, lowest, or middlest when we have guests? I don't remember what we did.
Let the guest decide.
Hey.
Highest.
Highest.
All right.
Yeah.
So whoever rolls the highest on our 12-sided dice, because we're watching 12 different directors this year, gets to give a short summary of the movie, and then we'll go into a few questions regarding the movie, and then we will go into spoiler town, and you will be warned ahead of time.
I'll save my second question for after the synopsis.
Okay. I think I'm going. I think we've broken the guest always goes curse.
I have a 9.
I have a 12.
I have a 13.
Wait a second.
Minus 10. No.
All right. Yeah. So you want me to give the synopsis before your next question, you said?
Yeah. You can give the synopsis and I'll ask my question.
This is a very short synopsis. This is a movie rendition of the book called Autobiography of Malcolm X by... Oh, I had the book up. I think it's Alex Haley Alexander Haley is the author of the book. And the book was first published in 1965. And then I did see that the original screenplay was picked up by James Baldwin in 1967. There was a plans for doing it then. If you're not familiar, James Baldwin is an author I've been wanting to read, but he is an openly queer black author.
Oh,
and
sorry,
what poor timing!
I know, my phone started going off, and I'm like, oh, I'm on mic. I was like, oh, that's not what I wanted to come out at that moment.
Oh goodness, when I say a queer black author,
I was just like my phone just starts going ding ding, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that was a very terrible time to say that. Also, that's going to be the cold open.
The jump scare. So when Dpayne gets canceled, it's been nice doing the podcast with you. But yes, I believe the script was set aside. James Baldwin passed away in 1987, and then it was picked up again by Spike Lee in 1992, who rewrote it and cut some scenes that Baldwin had written about. So it is a lengthy movie, but I don't know what you expect out of a movie that covers basically the teenage life all the way to... How old was Malcolm X when he passed? I didn't look up that fact.
I want to say it was... Either in his
50s?
39.
When he died?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
39. Oh, he was young.
Yeah, he was young. Yeah, I had the feeling that it was like, it wasn't much past 40, because I think Martin Luther King Jr. was in his 50s when he was, well, spoilers, not spoilers. And
I don't know.
In any case, but yeah, it's a movie that essentially spans, I guess, then mathematically 20 plus years of one character's life.
Yeah, on that, Martin Luther King also was 39 years old when he died or got assassinated.
Oh, I thought he was older. Well, I mean, I know they were very much in the same, like, they're very parallel to each other. And the movie kind of talks about them being parallel.
There's a line that made me laugh. But
I did ask Strider about that, and Strider was familiar with something. Because I knew... Okay, I'll just say it now. I was aware of infidelity done, and then that's why, like, I was like, was it just infidelity that they're talking about? And all Strider did, Dpayne, can you look at my camera? Strider went like this and said, wife. And I went, oh! And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I didn't look up those facts for myself. But that is something that, once you said that out loud, I was like, okay. But in any case, yeah. Because this movie was, almost 3.5 hours long?
Yeah.
Was it 3.5?
Yeah, it's like 200
yeah, pretty close,
minutes.
3 hours and 22 minutes.
Oh, yeah, 3 and 22 minutes, yeah. Oh,
yeah, I got the message from Dpayne. He was like, it's a longer movie, but it doesn't feel like it. And then I started it when I was, like, kind of tired after traveling back and forth from the office. I was like, he didn't tell me it was this long.
I didn't realize it
because
either.
I thought it was, like... as I thought it was like a 2-hour movie. Like, so to J2, just like Hop and I, we were watching Stanley Kubrick films last month, which was technically still this month. But hey, who's counting? But when we were watching that, we were just like, his films just feel like they're so much longer than the time said that it said. And this one, I'm just sitting there watching. I'm like, hey, cool. And then I was like, oh man, like I'm invested in watching everything. And then I looked down at the time, like, oh, how much time actually passed? It didn't feel like an hour and a half just went by. And so, but it, at least for my personal side of it, my personal watch was, it didn't feel like a 3.5 hour movie. But that could just been me.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I think it was paced pretty well. But what were you gonna say, J2?
For someone who doesn't watch movies, your resident non-movie watcher over here, I had to take a couple of breaks, like at an hour mark, because I was like, "Ooh, boy, I need to get up and do other stuff and kind of stretch and take my mind off of it." But there was a part where in the movie, we're probably gonna talk about this later, where I felt like Denzel Washington really slipped into the character of who Malcolm X was, where I was fully engaged in the story, and I basically sat there for 2 hours watching the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did have a moment in the middle where, again, it's not the movie's fault. I literally, like, when I go in to drive to the office, I have the problem where I'm that kind of sleeper that I'm a really light sleeper. So I usually get, like, a terrible night's sleep, and I waited until Tuesday to watch this. But there was a part in the middle where I was like, they're doing a lot of speeches. Oh, no, I fell asleep. But then I woke up, and after that, I was like, oh, I'm invested now. So you guys can fill me in on like the little part that I missed. I was debating if I was going to go back and rewatch it, but I feel like a good meat of this movie I figured we'd talk about is it's pretty well spread out, that there's plenty of movie for us to talk about. And I don't think I necessarily missed any big character arcs for him. But
yeah, but I do agree it was paced pretty well in terms of telling that story of Malcolm X. And even though it was a 3-hour movie, I felt like there was a lot of things that we still don't know about Malcolm X, but overall, we were able to give, we were basically given a full synopsis of, okay, this is who Malcolm X is. This is kind of sort of the things that made him to who he was. And this is how, towards the end of his life, he basically had his viewpoint of the world in terms of, you can see this shift in his viewpoint from when he initially started in the movie to the very end. I think it overall was paced pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, are you guys ready for some questions to lead us into our discussion?
Well, I did have my one question
yes.
after the synopsis. How much did you guys do? Like, how much did you guys know or read of Malcolm X before watching this movie? Because for me personally, I haven't. So like this was like my first kind of like, I knew of him and I know what some people said about him. But,
there's a lot of negative bias around him for sure.
Yes.
I haven't read this autobiography, and I haven't read a lot of his personal speeches or teachings. I know when I was in grade school, he was kind of like a name mentioned, but I was mainly taught about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. And like, as an adult, I understand why they didn't want to teach other perspectives because of the negative connotations that they give him. But I, as an adult, started to read kind of figures around him. So I've read a little bit of Angela Y. Davies, and they only vaguely, like, I was hoping she would be a little bit more in the movie. I know she's not necessarily in Michael X's camp, but she talks a lot about working with him and like how he helped her when she was like outed out of the United States and labeled as a terrorist for her work for racial rights. But in the movie, there's the tiniest clip of Malcolm X holding a sign that says "Free Angela." I was like, I know her. I read about her. So like, I was like, vaguely familiar of Malcolm X, but I haven't actually read anything of his verbatim.
Yeah. For me, I had taken African American studies in high school. I knew a little bit more about Malcolm X story that was taught outside of the traditional history class, but to the full extent of what was covered in the movie, I didn't really know Malcolm X's full story in terms of okay, this is who this individual is. This is kind of sort of why the U.S. has shaped him out to be kind of sort of the villain of the civil rights movement, even though he really wasn't a villain. And overall, this movie helped me get a good understanding of who Malcolm X was, why did Malcolm X think the way that he thought, and overall, just to get a full breadth of his story and an understanding of to be able to relate to a little bit more empathetic than the information that I was given to or given in school about Malcolm X and his journey.
Yeah, I feel like at least the schools that I went to, they very much did the like they're I feel like they didn't make him out to be a martyr in the same way that I think he should be, based on like the movie at least and some other things that I've read about him. Whereas everyone talks about Martin Luther King Jr. as like the martyr for the civil rights movement. But like you said, like they were both the same age. They both were being followed. The movie covers this. They were both being followed very closely for their actions. And then I was looking up a little bit about like the difference between the book versus the movie versus the true history, and there's at least at the time when there were people convicted in like Malcolm X's death, but even they were like actually there's more powers at play, so everyone's just like we know that there's a lot going on that a lot of people didn't like him, but who's the big guy that liked him the least to finally do it? And it's yeah. I mean, this movie made me interested to read more and understand more. Because after reading, like I said, Angela Davis, like, it's a very... Until you read the people's own words, you're like, oh, a bunch of people, like, when you hear word of mouth of different things, can paint you out to be someone much worse than you are. But Angela Davis was just like... Yeah, they all said that I was part of all these like different like groups, and I wasn't. I was just friends with people across the different groups, but they kept using those people as labels for like why she's violent. She's like, I was never violent. He was, but I was just
I was there.
But it feels like similar to Malcolm X where like I do like what they did in the movie where there's moments where he's like, "No, I'm doing the right thing." And everyone's like, "Take a few steps back." And he's like, oh no. Oh, I see now. So that was a pretty cool moment to see. But any other questions, D-Payne?
No, that was it. But I do have one question. If this was the only movie you watched of this director, would you watch more of their catalog? Whoever would like to answer first.
I feel like I'm the most qualified here to answer it since I don't watch movies. I'm not really sure how. I don't really follow Spike Lee career. I know who Spike Lee is, and I respect him as a director and his viewpoint in terms of whenever he's operating a camera lens and shooting movies. But I don't. I can't recall off the top of my head Spike Lee movies, which. Probably going to get me in a lot of trouble with my community and end up getting a black card revoked. But overall, I would say, yeah, I like how Spike Lee addressed this story. He addressed it in a very humanistic fashion where he not only showed us who Malcolm X was and his belief system, but also he was able to tie a lot of Malcolm X's, what he was doing back to moments in his childhood where it kind of shifted his perspective of the world. So I really like how Spike Lee gave a humanistic feel to who Malcolm X is, because you can tell a story of anybody who is pretty prominent in terms of what they have done, but it takes a director or a very special eye to catch, okay, this is why this person feels and thinks the way that they feel, and this is how they're evolving in terms of they're still human even though they are taking on the system in a big fashion. They're still human and they deserve empathy and be able to have the world see them for who they are, which is someone who's just trying to provide rights to others or trying to do things for others. So I really like Spike Lee's approach, and his filming style really was a good approach. So I would definitely watch more Spike Lee movies if this was the only Spike Lee movie that I've seen.
Yeah,
Second question: is it the only Spike Lee movie you've seen?
I want to say it's not. We're gonna do a quick Google search right now. You can go ahead while
I think the other really big one is Do the Right Thing.
Do the Right Thing. I was gonna say, if you haven't, maybe check that out. It's not as long, but yeah,
it is a bit more of a modern story, but in the same, like a very similar lens.
Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Hot.
But yeah, for me, pretending I haven't like recently watched Do the Right Thing, like I think that I just struggle with biopics in general. Like, it's not the fault of the movie. I think the movie, again, is like, it's well done. There's a lot in there, even though there's a lot crammed in. It's easy to kind of like, it is a very linear and like easy to follow thing. But then when it comes to telling someone's life story, if it fits well in a movie, it makes me go, there's got to be more. That's what's going on. Yeah. So I think I'm just kind of biased towards not really being a biopic person. But it could also be because in the last couple of years, I've started listening to more and more biographies. And so, of course, some biographies are much better than others. And it's kind of like, I'm always like curious about biases. And I know this is based off of a book, and that book is based off of interviews, which is it's not like all first person accounts. It's like there's a whole chain of things to consider when looking at all of the information presented in the movie. So, like sometimes I'll listen to someone's a celebrity's biography and I go, that's weird. And then I Google something after the fact and they're like, well, it is true that they felt this way. Actually, this was the powers at play. So it's like things like that, like, this was a good watch, and it's not the fault of the director, but if I, like, looked into Spike Lee and he only ever did biopics, which I've seen some directors, they only do, like, one style of movie, I would not sign up to watch another biopic. I think I would rather kind of either just read or research someone, and put together the pieces, with all of the resources available to me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, survey says, I haven't seen this is my very first Spike Lee movie.
Welcome to the club. Ours was last week.
Yep, ours was last week.
We don't have any cards to get revoked, though, so good luck, you two.
I gotta go do some stuff to make sure mine's doesn't get revoked.
But yeah, how about you, D-Payne?
Sorry, I was looking up the autobiography.
The book,
yeah. And I found it's on YouTube. I don't know if it's legally on YouTube,
but it's on YouTube.
I found it on YouTube. I'm just gonna leave that there. But no, I really did enjoy this. I would say, for me, yes, I would watch more Spike Lee movies. I just from these two, like, Spike Lee is one of those directors I've always heard about, but I never really checked out their stuff, like his things. I don't really remember if there's a reason why, because mainly growing up I watched a lot of horror and a lot of fantasy and cartoons, and then I pretty much stopped watching movies for a while because they're expensive to go to the theater. And then recently, just partially from the podcast and partially things are now coming out that I'm interested in, I have been in here. But I will say, and I know I said this about other stuff, I don't think if I watched Spike Lee's films when I was younger, if I was at a maturity level to really grasp what he was trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when we watched Moonlight too. You said that as well, where it's another, like, if that director had a lot more movies, we would have also like found a way to fit that director into the series, because that was beautiful. But yeah, like, I feel like Spike Lee and that director very much have those movies where it's like, I wish everybody could understand the point of the movie and ingest it and grow empathy, but not everybody's gonna do that.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. It's so, like, watching this, I was I like his. I had very like less than elementary understanding of Malcolm X. Like I had name. I know he got mentioned in We Didn't Start the Fire.
Culture references.
Yeah, who didn't? But no, like I remember hearing, I guess not the kindest things said about him. Like not mainly of just how nothing about him as a person or what he did, but it's just like it. Like it was so much like
He became a symbol. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the circles that I grew up in, it wasn't shed in a positive light. But looking at this and like, it's one of those things I was telling somebody at work. I'm like, I don't know how much like how close this movie is, like how much is like directorial and story things to make a good movie and his actual parts of his life. But I'm like, okay, like there's a lot of stuff that was going on. But anyway, this is kind of talk for later. But watching this movie, I do enjoy biopics if they're done correctly. And what's the other one that I'm remembering that I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so bored. That it made it look so much American Gangster. That's what it was. That movie, the trailers made it look so like exciting, and then I don't know, I might enjoy it a little bit more now, but it's just like all the backroom drama of like this FBI agent and this drug lord. Like
More Denzel Washington.
Oh yeah, he is in that, isn't he? Right?
I looked up the poster and he's the guy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's like looking back at it, I'm like, that's a very interesting movie.
Directed by Ridley Scott.
Mm-hmm. That I'm like, I might have to go back and take a look at that movie now with a slightly expanded knowledge base. But anyway, yes, from watching this, I would be interested in watching more, and just due to the context we're doing, how Hop and I are doing this, I am more interested in watching more of his films. Like I'll go into this a little bit later, but like Spike Lee, I think has a really good gift at catching life on the camera that isn't just the people who are characters.
Oh, the scene of Malcolm X in solitary confinement, I was like, shivers. I don't like this feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So then, next question. I don't know if this is a very fair question because this is a biopic, but we've been asking it.
Hey, I'm already getting canceled from what I said earlier, so let's just double down now.
How much did you root for the characters?
Which one?
I'll just do a quick answer. I'll say that it's it's like, I think it's fair to say that this is a hard question to answer because this is real people and real events and really terrible situations. So I'm going to say that it's not so much that I rooted for anybody because, again, very complicated situations and there's only so much, like, you know, we're being told a very, like, certain side of the story. But I will say is I was really hoping, and like I knew the ending, but I was really hoping that like
spoilers
more. I was hoping to see that there were people that understood what he was trying to do without the negative connotations. Because like in the beginning, we have a lot of the interactions with cops and like hospital staff, and then later on we have interactions with higher up people in government, and then we have interactions with the press, and all of them are like looking for that, they're looking for the voice, right? They're looking for that like quote that they could use in the newspaper. And like I thought it was interesting when there was somebody who is like, I know I can't relate to you, but how can I help you further your cause? And he shut her down. And I was like, I hope there's someone that does that later in the movie when he's not so, like, in his own head about, like, the definition of fixing America. But, so I wouldn't say I rooted for anyone. I was hoping that somebody would grow more empathy. I guess I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way. From where Malcolm X started in his life, or where the movie had started to where he ended up at, one of the things that I was hoping, especially halfway through the movie, where he really committed towards a very strict regimen of he must basically teach the world about the black plight, the black American plight, and what it means to be black in America, or kind of sort of have your culture shunned away and stripped away from you. And I was hoping that and he had a lot of righteous fury. Like he was very much so. He had every right to be mad. He had every right to feel that the way that he felt, especially with how he grew up. But I was hoping at some point throughout the movie, it eventually got into that turning point where he was actually going to be the person who actually would extend the olive branch to say, okay, I know that this segment of people have done me wrong, but let me see if there's actually allies on the other side that can potentially help out my cause for the greater good of society. Because we're all, at the end of the day, all are humans, all are existing in this world together. So if we can find some way to set aside our differences, to be able to say to other civil rights leaders who he had a difference of opinion in, but eventually said, okay, I'm at the point in my life where I actually want to work with you all now. You all are, we're fighting the same fight, so let's fight it together. And whatever differences that we have, let's talk it out and let's see what we can come up with in terms of compromise. So he eventually got into that point, but that was one of the things I was hoping for at the beginning of the story was, him starting to get to that point of where he's working with other people who may not view the world the same as him, but overall have the same intentions as we want to make sure that we provide for a more equal world for everybody and make sure that we are taking care of one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they did that, it would probably been another hour and a half into the movie. Yeah, because like that is, it was interesting seeing that, but it was just like, if not that it felt rushed, but it was more just like I like his experiences and all that stuff, like when he goes on the pilgrimage, and like how, like, even before his mindset was changing on different things about working just with different people, like before he did that, but and then after that, his interactions with just other, like, expanding his worldview pretty much, and just like, no, we got to work together and all this stuff, and like how, kind of briefly how he was saying, like he didn't go into it, and we didn't really see it because like that would have been just a whole nother like as I said, like hour movie of just doing that. Like I feel like just those interactions alone could probably be its own movie of just like him post his post pilgrimage and stuff. And it mainly because of the movie, it gives like time periods of his life rather than like clear dates. Like I think they do every once in a while throw out ages, but it's just like at a certain point it's just like I don't know how much time actually has passed. And
yeah,
like,
it feels almost like a pivotal like set of years for him were condensed into like that given like 30-ish minutes, like because again it's from him being a teenager on the streets to
into
39.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I guess it, as Hop and JJ were saying, it's like it's hard to root as it is knowing that these are real people, real events, and like just real subject matter that is still being discussed today. So it's hard to be like, I root for this person, but it's just like I think pretty much instead of using the word root, I think getting a deep, not, I don't think deeper is the right word for it, but just expanding my understanding of that argument of just only hearing of, like I also said earlier, about only Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, and just more in this kind of like theater production learning about Malcolm X. But it's pretty much once I finish books on my to read list, it's just like, I know I'm gonna pick up a book or two of his to dive into that a little bit more, just to, I don't know, I like history, and so it's just, I don't know, you gotta learn about all different kinds of history.
Yeah. I will say there are a lot of good writers in and around his era. Like I have like reading challenges where it's like, oh, read things about like abolition and things like that. And that's, as J2 is aware, like Angela Davis, where I listened to her writings and I was like, oh my god, she's such a good writer. Why don't I read about her in high school? Why do I have to read about these dry, like, things that, like, you know, I've heard about all the time.
The people who write history books are the same people who don't know what seasoning is.
They have to give me the driest. On this day, we did this, and the next day we did this. And then I read something super poetic and beautiful from an author that I had to find out on my own as an adult, and I'm like, this taught me about more history than any of those, like, lectures did. But
we can't have these kids having actual thoughts now.
What are those? But yeah, so then I guess this is also a tough one to answer. What grade would you guys give the plot?
I ain't getting canceled again.
I mean, I guess in fairness, we all said like the pacing was good, so I think that's a fair thing to comment on. I had my little lull in the middle, but I think that's more of a me problem than anything else. So I guess all right, I'll reference this one website that I found because I was looking up like how accurate like historians find this movie. Again, this is just like a article on The Guardian. But they list the entertainment grade for this movie in A- and the history grade as C+. And I'm okay with an A- for the plot. I'll say it's their fault I picked that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think A- would do this movie well. If anything, and this just comes down to the constraints of the movie. One of the things I would like for this movie to kind of explore further is, and they touched on it a little bit, but they didn't really get into it, but the church, or the black church and the black community, is very important. And you can see that Malcolm X's father was a minister. Malcolm himself got up and preached and became a minister. And so I would have just liked for them to kind of touch on that a little bit more in terms of, okay, why is this institution so important to the black community? And here's how it kind of fits within the story that Malcolm X is telling, because it does kind of sort of lends itself towards Malcolm X and his cause. And again, this is just the constraints of the movie, but I would have just liked to see a little bit more of investigation into that. If there was like multiple parts of the movie that were able to be brought in, having a little bit more of an expanded explanation of why things are the way that they are within the black community, and also just slowing down certain aspects of his life so we can really see the full overall picture of it, because there was a lot of information in this movie. They give you an overview, and there were certain pieces where I was like, I want to explore that a little bit further in terms of, all right, what is happening here and why is it happening, and just get a little bit more into the nitty gritty. But that just comes with the restraints of trying to tell the story within 3 hours that definitely deserves more screen time.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. And there is like, I think it was Screen Rant, I skimmed that it said that one of the things they found a fault with the movie is that like his religion is his identity, and it does feel like in the movie they kind of go, oh yeah, he's part of this particular like sect of people, but then they don't actually elaborate like how much that influences like his frame of thinking, because the people you're around, the readings that you do, the people, like they kept mentioning the Elijah Muhammad, but then they don't really like, we kind of just get implied that Elijah Muhammad is feeding all these thoughts into Malcolm X, who's then preaching them to people. But yeah, it would be a lot more interesting to see how tied into everything that is. And then another thing that they kind of like shorthand, which I think would be like a really interesting like slow burn series. But apparently the brother Bane's character was a way for Spike Lee to get Malcolm X into the religion really quickly. But realistically, when he was in prison, his family was sending him letters, and it was like the slow like, hey, by the way, we started doing this. Hey, by the way, I know you're in prison, but this is what we're up to. Hey, and like it was a much slower burn for him to be converted to the faith. And again, really interesting because like you said, like that involves his family, it involves so many other people, and it all builds into who he ultimately is as a person. But for the sake of a movie, you can't like you have to you have to make some cuts.
Yeah.
I want to know what family member told him to read the whole dictionary. or was the dictionary? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, Aardvark.
Aardvark. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's like, oh man, I don't even want to do that. It's a good thing he was in prison. Had some light reading. Yeah, so I agree with what you guys are saying. Like, I really liked how the plot. It's like, I didn't look up the whole stuff. I'm just because I'm like, a movie isn't going to. If we wanted something more historically accurate, we would watch a documentary. This feels more like an onboarding place for people. Like, here's the character, and here's the message he was trying to do, and here's how he got there. But like, here's a stepping point for you to explore more of him, and then kind of dive into it a little bit more. But I'm not gonna. Yeah, like there's certain things that are like, okay, you gotta make changes, like it. Not to make light of this, but I know there's in a completely different genre where there's a lot of source material that people get very upset about is comic book movies, and it's like, that guy didn't do this, and it's like, yeah, but it wouldn't translate to screen well, and so I feel like this is a good translation to screen. As I'm saying, don't know a ton about his life, but it feels like
It's made you curious at least.
yes,
Yeah.
it made me curious, and it felt like it gave a good synopsis of his ideology and how he got there, pretty much a way to convey his own journey in 3.5 hours. But I would give the plot an A, but as I said, it has made me interested in learning more of the history behind him and all that.
Yeah, I'll say one of the things that I wanted to for the story to go in further was just his overall family dynamic. Because I try to get an understanding, okay, how many children does Malcolm X have, kind of sort of that general period. And that was kind of like one of those sections where I felt like it was a bit rushed in terms of who was Malcolm X to his family. So he had a wife, he had children, but we didn't really get a chance to really see that fatherly dynamic of, okay, he's getting up every day, going to fight the fight. Is he thinking about his family? What is he thinking about in terms of the future of his daughters? I would have loved for that to be something that would have also been explored. So that's kind of like one of the examples of the plots where I felt like if we could have gotten several different parts of this movie that is broken out, that's one of the parts where I would have liked to see a little bit longer in terms of his life story of him and his interaction with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
almost
fair.
like a Netflix kind of telling, like maybe not using Netflix, but it's just like that.
Those 40-minute segments
Yeah, the
of like
40-minute episodes.
Yeah, because like there's like his own like home life, and then there's also like his own siblings. Because in various clips of his past, we see that he has like, is it like 5 or 6 siblings?
Yeah.
Before he split off from them, and then I think this one thing I found said that his wife, after his death, never remarried and raised their 6 children. And I was like, in the movie, I only remember seeing like 3. Were there 6 and I just miscounted?
No. Yeah, because at first I was like, writing
She had
2.
triplets.
Yeah. At first I wrote like 2, then I wrote 3, and then at the end he had 4. And so I couldn't really get a good number in terms
Keep
of how
up,
many kids.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so she had twins when at the end of the movie, like they.
That must be it.
So, but yeah.
So,
Would
final.
you? Yeah. Oh.
Go ahead. Final question.
Would you like to recommend this movie to anyone?
Would you
Yeah.
recommend this movie to others?
Yeah, I think in the times that we live in now, I think it's a pretty good watch, especially when it comes to being a little bit more empathetic. I feel like right now the world, and it's always been this way, but for me personally, I feel like the world could use a bit more empathy. And this is kind of one of those opportunities for if someone was to go and watch this movie who don't quite necessarily know what the Black community is facing in terms of things that we might be raising awareness of, or saying, hey, this doesn't look right or feel right, and this kind of sort of is something that we want to change in the world. I think this would be a great movie for them to develop a little bit more empathy, for them to be able to kind of see, there's a historical ties to what is happening today in the world to what happened in the past. And so we need to understand what happened in the past to be able to move on in the future and not have the past continue to be something that becomes a prologue in terms of the outlook in the future. So there was one of the statements made within the movie that racism was going to be America's biggest crutch in terms of not allowing for us to, and I'm kind of summarizing this, but not allowing for us to really see the full fulfillment of America. Or no, racism was going to be the detriment of America. And so I felt like that was pretty important for quote that came up in the movie, that overall, we're all in this boat together, and we're going to have to exist in this boat together in terms of making sure that we're taking care of one another. And so just being able to see a world through the lens of someone else culturally who you haven't seen, or be able to understand that, hey, this is where my people come from, I think is important for today's society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to recommend this to people. I think the hardest sell would just be like, hey, this is over 3 hours long, and I know like in the attention economy that we have, thanks to a lot of social media and stuff like that. And I believe, Netflix says to their writing executives, write your shows assuming people are on their phone the whole time. So that's why shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender's reboot has the worst writing ever, and they're repetitive in it because they assume the watcher is not actively watching anything, so they repeat major plot lines multiple times. So for me, that means I'm not watching the show because it's written terribly, but I want to be able to have people watch this and, like you said, gain a lot of empathy, learn a lot, become like Itidsdpayne, become curious about parts of history that aren't taught in schools. But like, I don't know how to convince someone to sit still for 3+ hours. You said you took breaks.
Yeah, dude. And I was working on stuff while I was watching the movie. So you have a good point there.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I see is like the biggest detriment to it. If it were like we keep saying, like 40-minute episodes, and like as long as it took all its time it wanted, I could be like, do you want to watch the years of his life from this to this in like 40 minutes? I think it'd be a great watch.
Hey, all I'm saying is that there's a PBS documentary that I looked up that I haven't watched yet that is still an hour shorter than this movie. But yeah. I think the way I would probably stage this is like, mainly because we haven't watched the other movies on the list yet, but it's like, if you watched Do the Right Thing and you thought it was interesting, maybe check this movie out. Or if you're interested in more of a theatrical look at history, like, yeah. But I do think it's worth watching. I think I would be interested in watching it again at some point, maybe after I learned some more about his life and history and all that stuff. Like, I think that it would be interesting to see where the differences lie. But compared to other biopics that I've seen, I feel like I said that word like 3 different times. Like pronounced it 3 different times. But yeah, I feel like compared to other ones that I've seen, I think Spike Lee does a very good job at, like, even though it is a long movie, that like when I told Hoff that, yeah, it's a long movie, but it doesn't feel like it. I literally didn't realize it was a 3-hour movie, like for me personally. But it's yeah, it. I don't know. I might be a little bit of the outlier here for for watching stuff, for at least this stuff. But no, I think it's worth telling people, yeah, if you. I think that's how I would stage it. Check out Do the Right Thing, and then like if you like that, check it. Maybe take a look at this, because
I think Do the Right Thing is probably a good, like, so I've heard this tip for people that are like, I want to read classics, but like they're hard to read. I've heard people suggest people to read things like only a decade older, because usually the like then you kind of get a stepping stone of like the way that story writing has been, and it doesn't feel like a leap from like going from that to like the 1800s. Like it's a bit of a easy
I tell
gap.
them stop being a coward and read the book from the 1800s.
Thou hast to read. But I think Do the Right Thing is a nice like in between stepping stone where unfortunately Do the Right Thing is still very relevant, and there's a lot more names that could be chanted throughout that movie that all have prominent means in like modern history. But yeah, and then that to a stepping stone to like, as long as I saw an interesting quote from Spike Lee that said he's only been asked by white men about why he threw the trash can into the pizza joint, but he's never been asked by a person of color about that. So as long as you're not recommending the movie and the person comes back and goes, I don't understand why he threw the trash can, then they would be a good fit to watch Malcolm X. But if they were the kind of person that's like, I understand, but looting is bad, it's like, no. Shh. You gotta reset your mindset. It's not, they were not looting.
Instead of saying, oh, sweet summer child. Oh, it's stupid. But yeah. I also looked at the time, and it's just like, I don't know if we want to go.
We got to an hour, yeah. I guess I'll say like very quick spoiler town, and then we can each pick like one quick thing to talk about so that I feel like each of us have a little bit of thoughts that we'd like to just get off our chest. And we did warn the audience there would be spoiler town. So,
yes. So we can do
a pit stop at spoiler town.
Yeah, a quick drive by.
You want to do like a 15-minute time instead of a half hour?
Yeah. All right.
I did say it was a lot of movie, and we wouldn't struggle to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, I'm starting the right now. Okay, timer has been started. And then all thoughts went out of head. Yeah, so I guess with just now 2 Spike Lee movies watched, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, like the way he like captures like, I think one of the best scenes that it shows this is it's kind of like spliced between him getting his hair dyed red, and then him like all dressed up in Boston with Shorty or Spike Lee, which I'm like, Spike Lee just likes to be in his own movies.
He does like to be in his own movie. He was not dyeing his hair red.
I wasn't dyeing. I'm like, I don't know. Perm. Okay, yeah. I'm
He
just
was-
like, that's me just not knowing. I'm just like, yeah, he's getting his scalp burned.
They make the comment like, "Oh, your hair's like a white guy's hair now."
Yeah, I did notice that. I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, oh, there's parts that his hair is like, as I told other people, found out that my TV's so old, the highest resolution it gets is 720, and so I'm just like, I don't know. In certain lights, his hair looks red. Is that why? I don't know. I'm just gonna keep watching. But
No, I think naturally he did have lighter hair, so they tried to get Denzel Washington's hair to be lighter, and like his nickname's Red, so I think
that's what I thought
if you
it was
look at
for.
pictures, I think if you look at pictures of Malcolm X, like he is a bit lighter, and I think his hair is lighter. But no, it's there's comments to it later when they're like, when he's in the prison cell and he's being spoken to the guy, he's like, why are you doing things to make yourself less black?
Yes.
And that's what the hair thing is meant to signify, where it's I mean, J2 could probably speak to it better than I can, but I've seen a lot of videos of women going like, oh, I remember being a kid in the hot comb, and I'm like, I'm so like, I feel so bad that people with other hair textures feel like they have to do all of this that seems so dangerous.
Yeah. And just a personal story. So, and it's kind of sort of one of those moments as a kid that stuck with me forever through my adulthood. But it all goes down to what society identifies as beautiful, which is white futures being a thing of beauty. And I remember one day in the sixth grade, and I remember like it was yesterday. We somehow I was in a conversation with my friends before we were getting on the bus about our hair and our texture, and we were all going back and forth. And one of the things that I told one of my white friends is, "Wow, I wish I had hair like you." And that stuck with me forever because later on down the line, I didn't really understand the power of that statement. And that kid basically told me, and a group of friends also chimed in and also were like, "No, be proud of your hair. Like your hair. Your hair is cool." And but that moment stuck with me because I didn't really have an appreciation of my culture or who I was as a black person because of what society identified as beauty. And so one of the things that, and it's different today, I actually enjoy the texture of my hair today, but one of the things that we are working on within the black community is loving our hair, which is there's a lot of natural hair movements that are going on right now, just about enjoying our curls and our beauty. And I remember getting your hair perm as a black girl, especially in my family, was like a rite of passage in terms of, okay, you're going off to school, let's straighten your hair so you can fit in with the rest of the kids in the class. And it really wasn't back in the 90s. This is when it all this was happening. Back in the 90s, it really wasn't seen as appropriate to send your daughter to school with her hair in its natural texture and its natural form. So there's a lot of things that were happening and that carried over from that time period about aspiring to be and carry those white features. But overall, I say today as a society, we're getting a little bit more comfortable with, no, this is who you are culturally, and be appreciative of it because it is what makes you unique. So yeah, I definitely appreciated that, seeing that in the movie and how it ended up playing out to, and being able to draw that connection from what Malcolm X was doing when he was perming his hair to, what happened whenever I was younger and a kid, and seeing my sister and my cousins go through the same thing of getting their hair perm just so they can get straight hair and aspire to what was considered society's beauty standards.
Mm-hmm. But yes, I did pick up when he was in prison. I completely forgot the dude's name.
Brother Baines.
Baines.
Yeah, Brother Baines.
Yeah. That comment, but it was just like, I don't know. As I said, it's not part of. It wasn't part of me growing up or my part of the world. I'm just like, all I know is he's doing something to his hair, and it's very painful, and like everyone in the barbershop is poking fun at him and saying that all that, but like showing that aspect of life. But then when they all kind of get done up in the big, oh man, the name of the suit just left me. But anyway, like, and they're in their big suits and they're just going out in the town, and then it's just like the life of like, and you see like all these people moving around, like doing just short films and having like a minimal fraction of that many people like
And
walking
coordinating,
around. Yeah,
coordinating them
I'm like,
all,
that
yeah.
must have been a nightmare. But it's just like the background of that is they're just like, they're talking to people, moving around. It's like they're definitely the center focus. But like Spike Lee was able to like show like the time period and the life of that time that I'm totally forgetting the date, and like kind of show that and make it kind of get into that like that point of view and everything. And there's just like other points later. It's just the party lifestyle until he gets to prison, and then just the whole everything in prison of just like, it's not just because I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of movies now where it's like just have the main actors in there, the people in the background, it's whatever. But I feel like Spike Lee, like the people in the background, you guys are also people in the movie. You guys are characters. You are something. You're not just there for no reason. Like you, and like to the part where it's like there's a tone shift once he gets out of prison, and like the like who he's hanging out with now, and just we still see how he views the streets differently, that he is now part of Islam, and it's just in the Muslim faith, and it's just the way he looks at it, and just has a different attitude, and just how people's lives around him changed when he was away for 10 years. So I thought that was one thing I really enjoyed, that the way he was able to capture like life.
Like he does like and do the right thing as well. Like he highlights a lot of Black joy, which is really like, it's very fun to watch, and it's very like interesting for me because culturally, like I've never been to a big party where everybody's line dancing to the same song, and like it all looks like everybody's there to like let go and enjoy themselves. But it was interesting because I had to double check my history. I was like, what year did segregation end? Because as soon as the lady he dates for a while is like, dance with me, I was like, they're allowed in the same dance hall. Google. But
it did make me when those dance scenes came up. Sorry to interrupt, but I remember for Do the Right Thing. He's like, man, I could go for more like 2-minute dance sections, and I'm like,
oh, music videos.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, there's 2 giant music dance sections in this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, but it is interesting that like you mentioned, like the tone shift. So like him as like the partier and the rebel rouser, like even the colors and everything, and like his tone of voice and everything feels different. And then as soon as he starts discovering like hard drugs, you're like, all of this feels really different. And then his prison sentence, and then him coming out feels, you know, like completely like, it's not to say like it's bleak, but it was definitely a much more serious look at what's going on around him. And even his interactions with people, it felt like every time he was talking to someone once he was a minister, was very much like, are you following the faith? What does this have to do with the faith? And how do I train you to be like the best bastion of the faith? And it's like all of it to fit and seamlessly fit well all in the same movie, and it all be about the same person, and seeing how much growth and change he's gone through in that short time. And for me not to question any of it, because sometimes I'll read books and they're like, and this day he was suddenly a badass. I was like, when did he become a badass? I don't understand. But it was all very like seamless throughout this, even though like literal chapters of his life are so different.
Yeah, I agree. And overall, I think so Denzel Washington plays Malcolm X in the movie, and at first, whenever you see like a Denzel movie, you know what you're basically going to get. You're going to get Denzel, who's who does a very good job at acting. Speaks monologues. Those monologues hit well with the audience, and overall, Denzel brings who Denzel is to the character. At the beginning of the movie, I felt like, okay, this is Denzel Washington, and I knew that it was Malcolm X that he was playing, but I didn't really see him become one with Malcolm X until about 1 hour and 24 minutes in the movie. That's when I wrote down, after he met with Elijah Muhammad and basically started becoming very regimented about how he would function and operate within society. That's whenever I started to see, oh, wait, Denzel is actually starting to disappear into this character, and Malcolm X is starting to come up to the surface, to where decisions that are going on, you can see how it really impacted who Malcolm X was. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about this movie was, it would have been nice to see that at the beginning, but you could actually begin to see that shift of who Malcolm X was, and it really started to feel like it aligned more with who Denzel was as either an actor, or he just was getting a little bit more settled into the character. But you really could see how he was starting to mature into this mature figure who was very much regimented in the way that he would approach things, and just being able to really go about doing what he needed to do in order for there to be a bit more of what he wanted to see in society present.
Mm-hmm. I'm also... Oh, go ahead. Did you have something?
Before we run out of time, I thought it was very interesting that, like, to me as a viewer, it was so obvious that he was being trailed by, like, the FBI, but for him to be like, I'm in Mecca, and like I guess these white guys are FBI. I'm like, you guess, like they're filming you, but of course that's theatric. I don't know how closely he was actually filmed in real life, but it was interesting seeing the footage of him like actually on a camel though, and like everything like in the black and white during like the ending sequence. Because I was also curious, like if I put Denzel Washington and him next to each other in like black and white format versus like Denzel acting, I was curious how close Spike Lee decided to keep to that. But I ended up not doing that myself. But I'm guessing D-Payne, the line that you laughed at was the FBI with the bug in his hotel going, "Oh, he's like talking nice to his wife. He's a saint."
Yeah, it's like compared to King, this guy's a saint. Hold on, let's see. Does IMDb have that quote? Let's see. There's a lot of quotes that I'm scrolling through. So if you guys got something, I'll let you know when I find it, if it's even here.
One of the things that, and this all goes back to if we actually had more parts to the movie, and this movie was told out, a story was told out in a little sporadic, or not sporadic fashion, but a little bit more drawn out fashion. One of the things I'd enjoyed seeing was I would have liked to see the interaction between Martin Luther King and Malcolm X happen at some point in the movie, because the movie did make some sort of reference to the differences the two had, but also it really didn't address kind of sort of that interaction that they had in terms of, before Malcolm X went to Mecca and basically came back to the United States as a transformed person. It didn't really showcase kind of sort of that journey in terms of what was their conversation like before, whenever they had these differences, and what was their conversation like after, whenever they were ready to work together. It made implied movements towards those things in terms of Malcolm Luther King, real footage of him giving his opinion of Malcolm X, but I would like to have seen that interaction between those two.
Yeah, I think that would have been really interesting and really fleshed out. Like, I think it would also help flesh out, like, the history, like you said, like we've said. And I also think it would have been interesting to see him interact with other big figures to also be able to give people, like, other glimpses. Because, like, I feel like schools really like to teach about, like, the really big figureheads. But there are a lot of people that were active in a lot of different types of groups. And I remember I did a quick search on Martin Luther, and it does say that there was evidence of him having extramarital affairs, and I was like, okay. But the FBI's guys at that time for basically stalking a lot of these big civil rights leaders was like, they must be communists because it was during a big scare, and they try to find any evidence of communism to like force them out of the country. And it would be interesting to have been able to see in the context of Malcolm X, like discussions about, I think that as well, because like I think the thing that a lot of people forget with the way that history is taught is there's so much stuff connected that like even if they just slightly mention like, oh, like if the FBI agents were like, oh, I guess he's not a communist, then that would also help people lead a trail like, well, why was communism so important to them, and why were they using that as the excuse to like follow around these prominent leaders? So that would have also been pretty interesting, because like I was never good in history class, so like these little moments where things finally connect, I go, oh, it's finally in my brain. It finally makes sense in my head.
It's not here.
No, not the quote.
Yeah, the 15-minute visit to the spoiler town finished, but there was one other thing. It is at the end of the movie. So I'm realizing that there's one other thing that I saw Spike Lee direct, and I'm forgetting what it's. It's a video game.
On the IMDb.
I tried to find it. Okay, it is the NBA 2K16 Living the Dream, a Spike Lee full joint full movie. And so it is. He did the story, like pretty much the whole thing was you play an NBA character, you make your NBA character, and you're literally the main character in a Spike Lee movie for the NBA thing. And I watched these guys, like early YouTubers, play it, and before I even knew who Spike Lee was, and then I'm sitting here as I was watching this, and I'm like, the guy, they're both Canadian, and the guy he's also wow, words. He's also African, and he was like, I've seen so many Spike Lee movies. He does the same stuff in every movie. And the thing that came to my mind, because I remember him talking about it, is the end where Spike Lee is, not Spike Lee, but Denzel Washington is like, the camera's looking on there, and it looks like he's just floating. That's like, I understand like the weight and everything in there, but I just remember just watching him float, and then that scene like pops in there because they do something very similar in the NBA 2K Living the Dream, like that same camera shot of like camera pointed up at the main character, and he's just like kind of floating, and I'm like, I know what's happening here. But my brain is just cracking up because it's like the two commentators are playing the game, and he's like, he does this in every movie. What the heck? And I'm like dying laughing. I'm just like, okay, just not the time. But fortunately, by the time it ended, it brought me out of it. But but yeah, that one particular scene made me giggle a little. Mainly from that.
I have two quick things.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I liked about the movie was how Malcolm X was told multiple times to slow down. I picked up on that because I also myself am someone who not only speaks fast, but I do things kind of fast in life. So he was told multiple times to slow down by different people within his life. So I felt like that was a pretty important theme in the movie in terms of what Spike Lee was trying to bring to the forefront about just living in life a little bit more, or living in the present a little bit more, and not being so much in a rush to try to get to where you are going, where you may miss out on something. And another thing is when Malcolm X, or this thought just flew out of my head. I thought it just flew out of my head. It's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, it just flew out of my head. I'll look through the notes, and if it comes back up, I'll bring it back up. Oh yeah, crabs in the barrel mentality. So Malcolm X was gaining prominence after he got out of prison, and was seeking counsel from Elijah Muhammad. And one of the things that I did notice that Spike Lee had put in the movie in terms of, being careful who you surround yourself with, in terms of that being a lesson in the sense of, Malcolm X was doing things for the greater good of the community, which is how the movie was framed in terms of the lens. But there were people around Elijah Muhammad who kind of sort of the plant seeds of doubt in terms of, hey, there's this character that's beginning to take a lot of Elijah Muhammad's time and attention. He's starting to rise to prominence in terms of getting his message out there, and there's a lot of people starting to follow them. And you can get a sense that there was some jealousy behind what they were doing in terms of trying to bring Malcolm X back to their level and potentially below. And then that seeds of doubt started to really take shape and form when Elijah Muhammad was going behind Malcolm X's back and beginning to discuss with other people how he felt like Malcolm X was a prodigy, but at the same time, he could see Malcolm X turning against them. And so I think that's also an important message in terms of, being careful who you worship. Don't be blindly worshiping people, and also being careful who you surround yourself with. That I appreciated that Spike Lee brought to the forefront in terms of how he told the story, in the sense of just making sure that you are pacing life at a good pace, but also the people that you surround yourself is pretty important, and you need to make sure you're considering those who you surround yourself with, and not just blindly go with people who you think are necessarily right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, but in the movie at one point, his wife is like, "Are you gonna come home?" He's like, "Well, don't you know I have to open things across the country, and by this time, I need to open like 7 new mosques." And I was like, "By himself?
Yeah.
Just this one guy?"
He was doing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot of really neat things in there, and then I hope, I don't know, personally, as I dig into things, see see what how history matches up with the theater. But with that, I don't know. Do we have anything else that we want to say before final thoughts? Like we're getting close to. If we keep going, we might get to the halfway point of the movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is almost an hour and a half. I guess my final thoughts are thumbs up, worth the watch.
Yeah.
I want a 1 up, 2 thumbs up. Yeah.
I only have 2 thumbs up. And I just want to say that I really appreciated this movie, especially at the end. Uh, Seeing all those kids say that they were Malcolm X, and then them cutting to Nelson Mandela giving a speech in front of young
That's what
children.
it was. I'm like, I know who this is. Who
Oh,
is
you didn't? Oh.
I'm like, I know who this is. I can see his name in there, and I'm like, I know who this. And then as soon as he says it, I'm like, that's who it is.
But yeah, that made me super emotional to see because a lot of what I do today and how I carry myself is not for me to reap the benefits of, but for the future generation to reap the benefits of in terms of making sure that they know that they are special, that they're coming up in the world that might not necessarily see their greatness in them, but overall just know that they are great. And so I thoroughly appreciated that bow that was put onto the movie. And one of the things that also made me sad, which is, and I got to go back and take a look at it to make sure that it didn't actually happen. But if Malcolm X's children actually witness his assassination in person,
Ooh, yeah.
that definitely is one of those sore spots in terms of just something that's scarring and jarring to you happening at such a young age. So I really hope that his children didn't have to witness that. And hopefully if they or if they did witness it, hopefully they receive the healing that they need or receive the kind of sort of support that they need in order for them to really process that and make it through it, because that is a tough thing to have to witness, is someone that you love so close to you getting brutally murdered like he was.
Yeah. Also, the interlay of real footage throughout the movie also drove a lot of points home.
Yeah.
Man, there was a couple of parts when they had the footage, and I was like, had to do a double take. I was like, oh wait, that isn't Denzel. It's like,
They're that, yeah. But I also mean like the footage of like,
at
I
the
don't know.
end.
Yeah, a lot of people go like, "Oh, that was so long ago." No,
No,
Yeah.
no.
it's
Bernie Sanders protested at a lot of these things too. It's not that long ago.
Nope.
like, it's almost in the same vein, not the same weight, but it's just like, oh yeah, Final Fantasy, the Pixel one 20 years ago. No, 20 years ago was Final Fantasy 10. Ooh. So it's like, time
Yeah,
does
I
not
know.
move as fast as you think it does.
Yeah, I remember at book club they were like, "Yeah, this came out like 13 years ago," and we went, "Oh, it did."
So, but with that, I'm pretty sure we could spend much more time talking about this. But I have work tomorrow, so
Samesies.
Wow, me too.
yeah. So if you want us to talk for much longer, find that Patreon that we never set up now. But one of these days that it will actually be set up, and there will be 3 years worth of me making that joke and saying it's not real. But J2, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, and everyone, his links will be in the description wherever that is on whatever platform you're listening to it on. And yeah, just thank you for joining us. And I lost the spreadsheet. There it is. I just blinded myself. What we are watching next week is a movie called Inside Man. So
I think it's also Denzel Washington.
is it? Inside Man.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't get that far. I just said yes because I heard you say yes. Oh yeah, I remember the one thing I wanted to say about this. It's interesting, the bringing up American Gangster, seeing how it was a biopic and all that stuff. It's very interesting seeing Malcolm X directed by Spike Lee, and then American Gangster, how certain characters are portrayed by Ridley Scott, and it's just I'm like, I wonder if there was a different director, which it's like, yeah. So I'm just gonna leave that there. But
can I also say one more thing before we sign off?
Only one more thing.
Only one more thing. Okay. Yeah, it is about this black card that's about to be revoked. I haven't seen a Spike Lee movie, but I have seen Spike Lee projects. So before we revoke my black card, I would like for that to be taken into consideration. So that's all I have to say. Just wanted to put that out there, that I've seen Spike Lee projects, but not necessarily movies.
So don't come for him.
Yeah.
Was it the MVA Living the Dream?
It wasn't that. It was more so on the musical side. He worked a lot with Michael Jackson.
Okay. Oh, he did do music videos. Yeah.
He does commercials. They're on his IMDb. I think.
I think he's also credited with 2K16, if I saw right.
He's in Capital One. Did you say 2K16?
Yeah, NBA 2K16.
Yeah, that's what he...
that's Living the Dream?
That's Living the Dream.
Oh, okay.
No, he did a lot of interesting things there. I'm just scrolling through his IMDb, and then all of a sudden I just see... where to go? The Sweet Blood of Jesus. I'm like, don't know what that is. Wait a second. Oh, I did see this version of Old Boy. I forgot he did that. Old Boy's such a weird movie. But anyway, that is it, everybody. And until next time, we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.